Patrick Mahomes is having the worst start to a season in his entire career. He literally has more interceptions than touchdowns. The Chiefs really have just been decimated by injuries, and because of that, Mahomes has the worst supporting cast that he's ever had in the pros. It's even felt like when you watch the Chiefs that they just aren't as good as previous years. Now, of course, despite all of that, the Chiefs are 6-0 and the only undefeated team left in the NFL. I know, shocker. They haven't had the easiest schedule either. They've beaten some talented teams too, like the Ravens, Bengals, and 49ers. The Kansas City Chiefs are really just a wagon. This season is really like those Patriots teams for so long. Even when Tom Brady had lower stats than usual or bad weapons around him for whatever reason, the Patriots still found ways to win games. And in the Chiefs' case, it's really just a testament to how well Andy Reid has handled everything in Kansas City. It is absolutely absurd that this team continues to win games. But even with how bad Mahomes' stat line has been, he's still Patrick Mahomes. Not many quarterbacks could succeed with the hand that he's been dealt this season. But yeah, he hasn't been as good. But should we worry? Probably not. But seeing Mahomes with at least one pick in each of his games this season is certainly weird. He's still completing 67.9% of his passes and has 1,389 yards, but only has 6 touchdowns and has thrown 8 interceptions. It's felt like for him, and really the Chiefs too, it just hasn't been as good this season as it has been in the past. But at the end of the day, when they need to clutch up or do something to win the game, they do. They've just done enough to not lose games. And that's what great teams going through adversity do. And a lot of the times this season, it's been random players stepping up. In week 1, the Chiefs got to start the season against the Ravens in that big kickoff game. Those truly are two of the best teams in football. And honestly, maybe two of the best quarterbacks in football right now. And this season, Lamar Jackson has probably been the best quarterback in the league again. But in that game, the Chiefs got their key contributions from Xavier Worthy, their speedy first-round pick. It was starting to feel like he was going to be a big-time addition for them. He had a receiving touchdown, a rushing touchdown, and 68 yards from scrimmage. And since, well, he has only one game with over 25 yards receiving and just a single touchdown. But they needed him against the fast Ravens, and he showed up. The Chiefs could really use a guy like him to step up now, because all of a sudden, he's technically the wide receiver 1. Rashee Rice suffered an injury in week 4, and it actually came right after a Mahomes interception. Now, the knee injury isn't as bad as the Chiefs once thought it could be, but it's still not great, and he had to have surgery. Add in the fact that the Chiefs also signed Hollywood Brown to a deal, and he ended up suffering a season-ending shoulder injury. Juju Smith-Schuster is still dealing with an injury, and the cherry on top for the run game, Isaiah Pacheco broke his fibula and had to get surgery. But despite all the injuries, the Chiefs and the players have stepped up when they needed to. Travis Kelce is having a down year, at least by his standards, but even he has been able to show up big in those moments that it counts. The Chiefs have tried to fix the hole that Isaiah Pacheco left with his injury, and even brought back Kareem Hunt years after he was cut for kicking that woman in the hotel. And somehow, Xavier Worthy, Justin Watson, Mecole Hardman, and Travis Kelce have been enough to win games for this team on offense. But really more than anything, you just have to tip your cap to how well this defense is played. And that week 1 win was a big example of that. To be able to hold Lamar Jackson and Derrick Henry to only 10 points through 3 quarters, especially after what we've seen over the past 5 weeks, is insanely impressive. Now, the Ravens did make it a bit interesting though. They scored 10 points in the 4th quarter and even had the ball to tie it late, but the Chiefs are a season championship team. They've won 2 Super Bowls and played in another one for a reason. They know how to win when the lights are shining bright, and maybe some random help along the way. There's no doubt that there have been a lot of questionable decisions that have gone the Chiefs' way. The end of that game in week 1 wasn't an example of that. Isaiah likely was out of bounds on the last play of the game, and the Ravens ended up losing. And since, the Chiefs haven't lost a single game, even if it hasn't been pretty. The Kansas City Chiefs have been a very good football team for a very long time, and because of that, have found ways to blow out teams for a while now. That hasn't been the case this year though. They didn't even win a game by more than 1 score until their 5th game of the year. After that heavyweight win against the Ravens, they immediately had to turn around and play another very talented AFC team that at the time we all thought could compete with the Chiefs, the Bengals. And like the Ravens game, it was a good game. Really, anytime that Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow play each other, it feels like it's going to be a good game. But that was Mahomes' first 2 interceptions interception game of the year, and it did end essentially the worst way a game could. The Bengals are able to force 4th and 16, Mahomes throws it downfield, and bang, defensive pass interference. That set up a game-winning Harrison Butker field goal, and the Chiefs survived. Now, there's two parts to that win. For one, yes, the Chiefs did need to escape with a big call at the end of the game that went their way. But once again, I'd like to add that the call was correct. He got there early, and that's the right call. Good teams find a way to win games, and good teams also get lucky when they need to. The next week was against the Falcons, and the Chiefs started off really slow in this one. They were down 7 in the first quarter and then again in the second, but they fought back and did end up winning. But it did kind of come down to the wire. Kirk Cousins had the ball late on the Kansas City 13-yard line with a chance to win the game. But really the story of this season, the defense came up big. It was another game where Mahomes and the offense really didn't do enough, but the Chiefs still found a way to win. The next week, they played another down-to-the-wire game where they barely won, even though they probably should have won handedly. To be fair, it did come against the Chargers, who are a divisional rival, so they do see each other a lot. The Chargers actually raced out to a 10-0 lead, and then the Chiefs defense did not let them score again. It's not like the Chiefs had an offensively explosive game either. They only ended up scoring 17 points all game, but still won. It was tied going into the fourth quarter, but Samaje Perine punched it in, and the Chargers got the ball back, but were forced to punt and did not get the ball back for the rest of the game. The Chiefs ended up running out the clock, and it really was another game where the opposing team did have a chance to win it, but like always, the defense came up big when they needed to. When you take a look at Patrick Mahomes' game log or stat line, you really don't expect the total to have more interceptions than touchdowns. But this season has no doubt been different. He's thrown more touchdowns than interceptions in a game just one time, against the Falcons, where he had 2 touchdowns to 1 interception. Still, nothing crazy, but it gets uglier. His most recent 2 games, with a bye week in between, he's tossed 3 picks without a single passing touchdown. That's really uncharacteristic for Mahomes. In week 5 against the Saints, the Chiefs did finally win by more than 1 score. The Chiefs just rolled in this one. They still had to settle for a few more field goals than I'm sure they'd really want to, but it was well enough to win the game. But still, the touchdowns came on the ground from Kareem Hunt and Xavier Worthy, not passing. But to be fair, it wasn't really a bad performance from Mahomes. But the next week was. In fact, week 7 was one of the ugliest quarterback matchups that you'll see. And it wasn't between 2 scrubs like Anthony Richardson versus Tyler Huntley and Tim Boyle was. It was Patrick Mahomes against Brock Purdy. 2 guys who have had their name very high up in MVP odds, even though, let's be frank, they probably shouldn't. Mahomes completed a season-low 59.3% of his passes and threw 2 picks in the game. The Chiefs did still win the Super Bowl rematch 28-18, probably because Purdy played even worse and threw 3 interceptions, but again, it was terrible all the way around, but the Chiefs found a way to win. Even with all the injuries, even with the down year, and even with Patrick Mahomes not having the best weapons and his flaws finally being on full display without essentially having the Avengers around him, the Chiefs are still winning games. It's what the Patriots did for so many years with Tom Brady, and here we are again. At some point, you do expect Patrick Mahomes to bounce back. Regardless of what the stats say, he still passes the eye test. If you actually watch the games, that's still a damn good NFL quarterback, and there's really no reason to panic. The Chiefs just need to get healthy and have their weapons ready to go. Although it is absurd that Mahomes still has super high MVP odds. I feel like that ship has already sailed. Lamar Jackson is the clear leader of the pack and should be. But man, Patrick Mahomes over Josh Allen is just nuts. Even with Allen not having the best weapons to start the season, he's been elite. Josh Allen's biggest knock was always about the turnovers, but this season he still hasn't thrown a pick and has thrown 12 touchdowns. Mahomes is not outplaying Lamar or Allen right now, and honestly, there's probably a big list of guys playing better than Mahomes right now. That's just the reality, but it doesn't matter. The Chiefs just can't lose.